Welcome everybody to what we're calling the System of Care 101 training series. These are trainings that are happening each Wednesday, well, certain Wednesdays at 12 p.m. throughout November, December, January. We still have multiple trainings left. Each of those trainings are on a different child serving system. We encourage you to check out systemofcare.net, our website, where you can see other ones to register for. But if you've already registered for this one, you're probably aware of all that. Just a quick housekeeping message. We are being recorded so that we can post these to our System of Care website for later viewing. We have a date of about, maybe by Friday, we might start being able to post some of these up. So please stay muted throughout the training, but there will be 30 minutes of time at the end, about 30 minutes at the end for questions and answer. What we're asking you to do is during the presentation, if you have questions, just put them in the chat box and we'll track those and read those aloud to the presenters during the Q&A portion. So I just want to tell you a little bit about who System of Care is. So System of Care is a regional cross-system collaboration of youth, families, and system leaders who work collaboratively to improve the services and supports available to children, youth, and families in our region. We support multiple meetings each month where we work to ensure services in our region are well coordinated, culturally and linguistically responsive, youth and family driven, and community based. Just a quick word about our website. Just said it before, but I'll say it again because we'd love you to check it out. Systemofcare.net. There's training resources there to complement what is here given in the video format. There's also a system barrier submission process there where you can let us know about something that maybe needs fixed, and you can learn how to get involved in some of our meetings. So really appreciate everybody joining us. I'm going to hand it over to our presenters. They'll introduce themselves and get going. So I'll stop sharing there and they'll put their slides up and we'll get going here.
Thank you so much, Brian, for getting us started. And thank you for everybody listening. My name is Raul Rodriguez. I am an engagement specialist with the Oregon Department of Human Services out of Beaverton in Washington County. And I'm going to let my co-presenters introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Tatiana Chukri, and I am a Community Partnership Coordinator with Oregon Department of Human Services in Multnomah County.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sachi, pronoun she, hers, Oregon Department of Human Services, Self-Sufficiency, and a Community Partnership Coordinator. And I'm also with Tatiana in Multnomah County.
Okay. So as we stated before, we're specifically from Self-Sufficiency with the Oregon Department of Human Services. And let's see here. And the reason I say specifically is, you know, ODHS, if you can think of it as a house, it's composed of different walls that make up the whole agency, the whole house, right? And so self-sufficiency is just one wall in the structure. We've also got vocational rehab, child welfare, aging and people with disabilities, intellectual developmental disabilities. We all work together to really provide services to Oregonians, right? So we're all part of the same building. The self-sufficiency mission. We provide a safety net, family stability, and a connection to careers that guide Oregonians out of poverty. We honor the belief that families are experts on what they need to be successful. Self-sufficiency works to assist the family to achieve their goals of self-sufficiency and independence. So within self-sufficiency, we offer 5 different, what I like to call them flavors, like different flavors of services or programs. 5 different flavors, 5 different programs. We have the refugee program that I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. We also offer temporary assistance to domestic violence survivors. We have the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and we have employment-related daycare and temporary assistance to needy families. And I just kind of also want to preface this with everybody has the right to apply for any of these programs. So it's anybody can go into any open DHS office and apply for these programs. Okay, so the refugee program. The refugee program is designed to serve single adults and childless couples in the first 8 months of arrival in the US or from the date in which an eligible immigration status is granted. So we're going to be talking more about TANF here in a little bit, but the refugee program really is designed to help refugees that come into the country who are either like single adults or couples that do not have children. So if they do have a child, we would just route them to TANF. We would determine eligibility for TANF from there. This is really designed to help people coming into the country designated as refugees to help them get stabilized. Refugees who have dependent children are screened for TANF eligibility. There's not a separate refugee TANF program for new arrivals. They would not receive TANF. So again, if they have no children, we would screen them for the refugee program. If they have children, we would just go through the regular route of TANF. So assistance includes cash, medical, employment services, and for those that do not meet the eligibility standards for the other programs, administered by the ODHS. So we help them achieve economic self-sufficiency in the US as quickly as possible. So when they are receiving refugee benefits with ODHS, oftentimes they are working with community partners, nonprofits, that help them really get acclimated into the country, right? If you can imagine going to a completely different country, not knowing the language, the culture, it's a shock, right? And we do partner with those community partners to help them get acclimated. So what that looks like is there's a lot of like pre-employment training. So that's anything from like English language instruction to just understanding the dynamics of the American workplace, to even showing refugees how to use a public transportation system. So things that we may not even like think twice about, or things that we want to make sure that we help refugees with. So with refugee program, we provide an opportunity for individuals to assess their own strengths, needs, and goals. Pretty much on a weekly basis, refugees are meeting with the case managers from that corresponding nonprofit community partner, as well as also communicating with their family coach. We're constantly in communication so that we can help with anything that they may be needing. So even looking, applying for an apartment to, just being able to use the bus, right? So we really want to help individuals recognize their own capacity and assist them to locate employment or other alternatives so they can be independent from ongoing public benefits. So this is all for the purpose of helping them, get established and finding a job, or if, they may be eligible for Social Security, helping them with that. It's all designed to help these individuals in the community. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about now temporary assistance for domestic violence survivors, or TADVS. Really, the way I like to explain this is at its core, at its base, it is a safety plan, right? It is a safety plan that is brainstormed and talked about between the family coach. So the family coach is the case manager within self-sufficiency, and between the family coach and the survivor. So the program provides safety planning, support, and temporary financial help to support families whose safety is at risk due to domestic violence. TADVS eligibility is based on a participant's current or future risk of domestic violence. TADVS eligibility requirements are the same as TANF. However, some requirements may be waived temporarily to address emergent safety concerns. DHS partners with the Domestic Violence Resource Center to provide co-located DV advocates that can support survivors. So again, it's a safety plan that we come up with the survivor. The survivor, you know, they know their lives best, right? They know what they need to be doing, or they know what to do to keep themselves and their family safe. And so we really, they've already put in a lot of work into their situation, and we simply kind of just capture that, right? Bring it up on paper so that we're more conscious of like what it is that we are doing. And oftentimes the family coach also makes referrals to a co-located domestic violence advocate. DV advocates are advocates that really have a lot of experience in safety planning, and they can work, continue to work with the survivor on kind of fine-tuning the safety plan. So once approved, certifications are for 90 days and grant the survivor up to $1,200 to enhance their safety. TADVS payments can be used to meet the family's needs for shelter, food, relocation, and stabilization. TADVS payment requests are assessed on a case-by-case basis to ensure that they promote safety or independence from the abuser. So it's a case that is opened. It is really confidential, right? It just stays between the family coach and the survivor. It is opened for 90 days or 3 months. Within those 3 months, the approved case gives the survivor the capability of making what's called that payment request. The way I like to explain it is, if there is a financial barrier to completing the safety plan, then perhaps we can look at this. We can look at the grant of up to $1,200 to overcome that financial barrier and complete that safety plan or progress within that safety plan. And it's really, this is my favorite program in the sense that it's extremely flexible, right? Every domestic violence situation is different from the last, right? These situations are not black and white, they're gray. And it's really important. It just goes back to that safety plan. It's really important for that safety plan to be talked about between the family coach and the survivor. When the payment request is made, it is staffed with a DHS manager, and it is reviewed to ensure that the safety is a priority, and we can make a payment after that is reviewed. So next, we are going to be talking about SNAP, and I'm going to let my co-presenter continue from here.
Great, thank you, Raul. So the next program that I would like to talk about is the SNAP program. And SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, formerly known as the Food Stamps Program. This program provides food benefits, access to healthy diet, and education on food preparation and nutrition to low-income households. SNAP is the largest program in the domestic hunger safety net. The Food and Nutrition Services works with the state agency, nutrition educators, and faith-based organizations to ensure that those eligible for nutrition assistance can make informed decisions about applying for the program and can access the benefits. Some of the programs that Oregon Department of Human Services works with very close is our WIC program. WIC stands for Women, Infants, and Children, Meals on Wheels, Free Reduced School Lunches, Oregon Food Banks, and food pantries, and some other programs. Most SNAP benefits in Oregon are issued via EBT card. EBT stands for Electronic Benefits Transfer Card. And this card actually very largely known as an Oregon Trail card. This card works just like any other ATM card. EBT cards may be used for food purchases in grocery stores, convenience stores, and some other facilities that have the EBT card has access to. Households cannot use SNAP benefits to buy alcohol or any tobacco products, any non-food items such as pet foods, household items, and And the food that will be eaten at the stores cannot be purchased on EBT, an EBT card for SNAP benefits. SNAP also offers a TBA program. TBA stands for Transitional Benefits Alternative for family who are on open they have open SNAP case, and they also have open TNF case. So let's say if the family gets, there's increase in earnings, they get a job, or maybe their child support gets increased and the TNF gets closed, because all of our programs that are based on financial eligibility. And if TNF gets closed, this program, the TBA program, allows them to freeze their SNAP at the current amount, not to take any income into consideration for next 5 months. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next program that I would like to talk about is ERDC program. ERDC stands for Employment Related Daycare. ERDC program is founded through the Oregon Department of Human Services, and this program helps eligible low-income parents pay for childcare so they can work. If the parent is eligible for assistance, Oregon Department of Human Services will pay a portion of their child care bill directly to the family chosen provider through the direct pay unit in Salem. Providers must complete a child care provider listing to find out if they can become listed with DHS, and must meet DHS requirements, including the passing background check. That's really important piece for us to make sure that the child care provider passed the background check. Most parents are also required to pay a portion of the cost called the copay directly to the provider. The copay amount is determined according to a sliding fee scale based on the family income and household size. And if families are needed assistance to locate the child care, they are referred to 211 info, and 211 can be the families can call or text or email, or just go on a website 211, and they can get a lot of information about the childcare providers. They have a map where they can put their address and put like a 10 miles radius around their address to see what providers, and get the providers' information from 211. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next program is a TNF program, a Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. This program provides cash assistance to low-income families with children while they strive to become self-sufficient. Cash assistance is needed to meet the family's basic needs, such as food, clothing, shelter, and utilities. Most cash benefits in Oregon are issued via electronic benefits card, which is EBT card. Besides the cash assistance, TNF program provides a case management as well. Families on TNF work with DHS family coaches, who are case managers, to develop plans to assist the family to overcome their barriers, achieve their goals, and become self-sufficient. And some of the tools that the family coaches are used: a family assessment, employment and training program. We can make referrals to different trainings and to different programs to find employment. Also, the TNF program is working with disability analysts who can provide assistance to apply for SSI. The TNF program has a 60 months limit for households, and it's a lifetime limit, 60 months, which is 5 years. In order to be eligible for TNF, the family must have a dependent child. A child must live with a caretaker relative. So it's not necessarily can be a parent, it could be a caretaker relative who takes care of the child. And the caretaker relative, if they're not a parent, they can choose to apply for themselves or just for the child. If they're applying for the child, it's a different that they can apply for, and the program is called Non-Needy Caretaker Relative Grant, which is an NCR program. for women who are pregnant with
Real
their
quick, hold on.
first child.
Sorry to interrupt. It's your audio is very garbled right now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not. It's probably who knows what it is. I don't know if maybe Sachi can jump in and see if hers is a little better.
Sure, Raul and Tatiana. Yeah, I can go ahead. So I think Tatiana was basically just explaining some of the eligibility around the temporary assistance for needy families. That's TANF program. And just seeing what's on the chat. Yeah, so Tatiana was saying that generally the TANF program is in Oregon, it changes from state to state. In Oregon, it's a 60-month time limit, which is 5 years. And the household has to have a child to be able to be eligible. And then so there has to be a sort of caretaker relative in some cases where if the caretaker relative is not the parent, they can choose to apply for themselves as well, or just for the child. In some of the policy words, it's called a non-needy caretaker relative grant. So if someone who is pregnant with their first child, the pregnancy must have reached the month before the month in which the due date falls. So a month before the due date is when someone could potentially be eligible for the TANF program if they don't have any other children in the household. And so the TANF definition, I'm just reading off of the slide right now. The TANF definition of a child is a dependent child under the age of 18 or age 18 and attending high school or the equivalent full-time. So I know we have time at the end for any questions, and I'm sure there will be questions. So we will move on to the next slide. So TANF, as with all DHS, Tatiana, did you want to try one more time, or should I keep going?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So like I said before, all of our programs, they're based on income limits, and for TNF, it's one of the requirements is income limits and resource limits. And to be eligible for the TNF, the income will have to be a very, very small amount or no income at all. And resource limits are there's very little resources or no resources at all.
Okay, I'm seeing some questions on the chat, and Susanna, thank you. We work together in Hillsborough, and she's an expert on this subject as well. So I appreciate it, Susanna. So I think that answers one of the 60-month limit questions. And kind of start for the child on the case. Yeah. So moving on to the next case planning section of the slides, and please bring up the questions again if we missed any. So the case planning section. So the difference between food benefits and case planning or TANF is that temporary assistance for needy families comes with your own personal sort of case manager or case worker. Department of Human Services now calls them family coaches. And having been one myself, I like to think of them as sort of people that can cheer you on and support you. And it's more of a one-on-one relationship. As opposed to, someone meeting an eligibility worker and, moving on to receive their benefits. The family coach is someone the person who's receiving benefits can reach out to and be in touch with, text messaging, email sort of thing. So the first thing, once someone has been deemed eligible for TANF, that they go through is a meeting with the family coach. And this involves developing a plan and then working together to sort of identify strengths and barriers that need to be removed. So just reading off of some of the slides, you'll see that, family assessment tool, just typical sort of lingo that we use internally, skill development opportunities. So part of meeting with the family coach is to identify how is the person feeling, where are they at in terms of what would they like to achieve. They have kids at home. What do they want to do? And then based off of that conversation, it's just looking at people's interests, ability to participate a certain number of hours each week, and what would get them to where they need to, and where can we connect with other community nonprofit agencies, which I think is where most of some of you might be from as well, and just having those partnerships and collaborating on how we can support someone. So if we wanted to go on to the next slide, and we're seeing questions as well, and we'll get to those after. What can I put into place? Yeah, so just the last question I'm seeing in terms of COVID, it really depends on a lot of the times people's individual situations. So it's a conversation people have together. And if someone is, for instance, at home, so that actually that's a good segue into our next slide, which is, so once the family coach and the person on TANF is meeting, a lot of the times there might be kids involved, like they might be together while you're doing this assessment and figuring out where you're at. It's so, for instance, someone says over the phone right now, hey, I have kids at home. I'm not able to go anywhere right now or do anything. It would be a conversation with that family coach and the person. And they're saying, hey, all I can do right now is just take care of my kid. And that's okay. So part of it is just trying to figure out what the case plan is going to look like and what kind of step, which is sort of like, where can we sort of start building and identifying those short-term and long-term goals someone is interested and able to participate in. I want to sort of put a caveat in here that, like in the past, like the programs would seem very sort of punitive, and that's where the state is trying to move away from that kind of approach and being more strength-based. And I like to think we're trying, because some of the programs still requires people participate. That's the reality. That are so yeah, so it just depends on the eligibility pieces we'll get to at the end. So part of the case planning is, for example, if someone says, hey, I need help with parenting, I'm having trouble with my child, and that's a conversation and a referral. So the family coach's job really is to be able to know. I used to think of it as like a little jigsaw puzzle where you work together with the person and try to identify, okay, so you're interested in career development or English language training or parenting support, and just identifying, or drug and alcohol treatment. So recovery is a thing that you're working on, and something that is really stopping you from getting to your next level. So personally, I think it's one of the most powerful sort of support systems in place, and it really is dependent on relationships and figuring out how it works and sort of minimizing some of the controls and requirements that come with the program itself. And we're ready to go on to the next. They cannot reach it. So families do get in touch with their coach, and a lot of the times there's email, and we have cell phones now, which is a thing. And so text messaging is also an option. And there really shouldn't be a time when someone can't get in touch with their family coach they're working with, but if they do, they can also reach out to the branch itself and connect with them. And I'll keep going, Veronica. I feel like that's not really an answer to the questions, because during the meeting, they do sort of connect. And when I used to meet with people, I would make sure that we text immediately and make sure that the connection is made, because I found people find it easier to text sometimes. Although I've also had people say, please do not call me. Email me if you need to, text me if you need to, just do not call me because my kid and I just don't have the yeah, I like what Susanna said too about the life coach piece. It's sort of helping people identify their goals. And yeah, I've had people tell me, like they're not people who need to be on this program anymore, and just like really feel bad about being in the program. So it's just sort of talking people through helping people and each of the kids. That could be and Veronica, that's really something, especially during COVID times, that the agency has been experiencing, just because family coaches were pulled to do eligibility because SNAP was really something that just there was overwhelming need to process SNAP applications. And so it just depends on each district and county and resources available. But rest assured, like people who need, especially if somebody's like in a domestic violence situation, they are given priority and always do have access to their person or branch. And so, and we also have leads. And so I'm moving on to the next thing because I tend to talk too much. So the TANF, oh, sorry, Raul, we go back one slide. So the cool thing with the plan is that we also come to the job support services piece. And so jobs, interestingly, is a acronym, not to mean that you have to go find a job, which sometimes confuses people. It's actually an acronym that stands for Jobs, Opportunity, and Basic Skills. So how this works is depending on the number of hours someone is able to participate on their plan, they can, as the slide says, Oregon Department of Human Services has limited funding and may provide transportation, housing, utilities, and childcare assistance. And again, this is always dependent on an individual case-by-case basis, but also what's available in terms of funding at any given time. So it's, especially with like housing funds, it's either a referral to the community or it's actually funds that might be available in a certain district or county, and accessing those. My response is always, if you're working with people receiving benefits or have a question, it's always worth asking about. Because in my experience, the family coaches really do advocate on the back end to really try and get whatever assistance we can. So it's just ask. It doesn't hurt, especially if there's a need. Like, it's just important to be able to know that it's a conversation you have with the family coach. And I'm ready to move on to the next slide. I'm sorry if I'm sort of repeating myself. So the employment and training jobs activities, this is part of the planning of, so once you've identified sort of like you've been through, oh, I have a high school diploma or I do not, and I'd like to focus on those things, there are certain activities that you can also be working on. So if someone, say, has been out of work for a few years and would like to really get back into getting some work experience or training, there are things called the Work Experience and Jobs Plus program, which are like, I like to think of them as paid internships. So a work experience is just an internship. There's no like, you're on benefits, you're receiving TANF, and then at the same time, you are participating in working for an employer for a certain number of hours, usually part-time. And the number of hours I'll calculate it based off of your case. But I've had great experiences with having people go through these programs, and some of them are my coworkers now. Like, it's a very great opportunity if an employer is also willing to work with us. So the Jobs Plus program, again, is more of like actual simulated work where you're receiving a stipend for working in a certain position, and you're also receiving mentorship, and they also allow you to apply for jobs. And so it's just, there are multiple, it's a, I don't know what the real word is, but it's very versatile. And I like it personally, as long as, you know, people are willing to be creative, there's opportunity in being able to identify where you can find what works best for that person. So micro enterprise is an option, figuring out ways to sort of access trainings and community services and also high school diplomas. So if you do have specific questions about particular cases, I do encourage you to reach out to a family coach. And if not, just at the end, we can talk about it too. And I'm ready to go on to the next slide.
Okay. So we really encourage the families we work with, referred to as participants, we really encourage them to report any big changes within 10 days. So changes such as the phone number, contact information, whether it's like an email, if they have like a better email to communicate to them with, if they move, if there's, if they start working, right, if there's any changes of income, if they start getting Social Security, and if anybody moves in and out of the house. So it's any big changes like that, we encourage our the families we work with to report as soon as possible. There's different reasons associated with that, but a lot of it's connected with their benefits, right? So if so for example, for our food benefits, our SNAP benefits, the way we're set up at the moment is the address we have on file, the system automatically sends them a form in the mail, in the U.S. mail to for them to fill out so they can reapply. If we have the wrong address, they may never get that form. That may be the only way that they know that they're due for a recertification of their food benefits, and so that's why it's really important to keep a up-to-date address. And of course, like if we do home visits, it'd be important to know the right address, correct? And of course, it's the phone numbers. So we family coaches right now have different ways of communicating with the family coach. So the participants and family coaches. So family coaches each have their own cell phone, work phone. So a participant can text the family coach. They can call them directly. They can email. And if the participant is most comfortable talking in person, we can do home visits. We can meet them in the community, in a park, in a Starbucks, McDonald's, wherever, right? We want to make it as we want to accommodate and make it as easy as possible for the families to be able to communicate with us. We can accommodate to almost anything. And we really want to make sure that communication is there, because it's really important so that we can build upon their case plan and just convey any important information. We also have what are called like re-engagement appointments, where we can meet with the family along with community partners and other professionals that can help get them hooked up with resources or anything else they may be needing, right? They're really great opportunities to really identify any barriers and to brainstorm and provide any support that they may be needing. So communication is of the utmost importance with us, and we try to be as flexible as possible in that sense. So with self-sufficiency, we actually have in Washington County, we have 3 different self-sufficiency offices that are open branches. So that means you can go in and walk in and speak to somebody in person. We have one in Beaverton, we have one in Hillsborough, and we have one in Tigard. Again, anybody can walk in, and really if they have any questions, they can talk to anybody. We have community partnership coordinators that can also help with questions when they go into the office.
And sorry, Raul, were you gonna go ahead?
Oh, okay, yeah, I can cover it as well. So and that was for Washington County in particular. In Multnomah County, there are a lot more open offices than in Washington County. We only have 3 in Washington County, but in Multnomah County, where my co-presenters are from, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 branches there at least. And they're all open to people calling, walking in with any concerns or questions to communicate with self-sufficiency staff, essentially. Okay.
And so some of the links that were shared were that, so the SNAP online application, and the answer to, I'm seeing some of the questions in the chat, is that specific cases. One is I really don't do eligibility, so I'm just afraid to answer on the policy related questions, but also it's so different from person to person. So it's super important that people just always submit an application. If they're not in, just apply. And the worst thing that can happen is they'll say like you're over income, or you just cannot, like you're not receiving benefits for some reason, but it's worth applying. And so you can apply using this website here. And then related to the employment-related daycare copay that Tatiana mentioned, I'm so sorry about the sun here. Tatiana mentioned that there's a copay calculator online, which is something that's helpful because even as a worker, it's always difficult to know what the actual numbers are going to be until they're run. So there's an employment-related childcare calculator on the internet if you're interested in exploring that. And one of the exciting things that are happening, and Brian, there's a question, can we have those links sent out in an email? Yeah, hopefully. And you can also just Google it. It'll come up. That's how I find it, which I know is horrible to say, but Brian nods his head, so it will be coming out in an email. Something that we are excited about, but also there's a lot of change going on right now is the ONE system. And essentially it's benefits.oregon.gov. Multnomah County, I imagine Washington County also, we will be going live in February. And the idea is instead of having separate locations where people would apply for these different benefits, we are going to have all of our benefits in one application, which is very exciting because I think the state recognizes there are many barriers attached to the bureaucracy of what the work entails. So I'm excited. We're all going through fun trainings that requires hours of learning things. But the Oregon Health Plan will also be part of, thank you, Tani. Yeah, I'm excited too, is that everything is going to be on one program, one application. And the website is benefits.oregon.gov. And so even now, I think some of it is open. But so the idea is no matter where you live in Oregon, you can go online, apply, and then some worker somewhere in Oregon is going to be processing your application. So exciting. And also just know that sometimes there's like a little bit of a learning curve. So please forgive us if there's some delays in also getting to them. And we're next ready to go to the yeah, so I think the Veronica, I think self-sufficiency, and Raul, you might have to step. So we're saying thank you, and we've come to the exciting questions part. So I think we can begin with Veronica's question, which is the public charge, which is always fun. So Raul, did you want to? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So, and we'll provide a link to this. There's a hotline that. I call it hotline, and not to confuse it with like the child welfare hotline, but it's a hotline with the state that can provide information to families and people regarding public charge. So that in particular, you know, I know we go back to this a lot, but everybody's situation is different, right? And in particular with like Oregon Department of Human Services, you know, we really can't provide any like type of like legal advice pertaining to like immigration status or anything like that. But there is a hotline number that we will provide that families can call, people can call to have their answers, to have their questions answered, excuse me, pertaining to public charge. But really, what I want to really say is that everybody has a right to apply for our services, our benefits. We encourage it, and we are we will look at the situation individually and see if there is if eligibility is there. And so, yeah, again, we'll share this phone number for this hotline that families can call, but we encourage everybody, absolutely everybody to apply if they are interested in it, because that's the only way to really gauge like their particular situation and see if they're going to be eligible for benefits. Yeah. Brian,
I just want to throw something in real quick that Raul has offered to answer your questions in written format too. So I've collected all the questions, and so we'll answer them here, but then also we'll send out links and answers to the questions. And then also we're going to put this info up on the System of Care 101 website, where there is a whole page on self-sufficiency and all these links are there.
Yeah. And if anybody has like questions now that they want to talk or verbally want to ask or put in the chat box, please go ahead and we'll try our best here.
Yeah, and I'll go up to some earlier ones that I collected. I know you were kind of answering as you went, so just feel free to say. I feel like I got to that one. But the first one is the 5-year TANF limit applicable to the adult household member or the child receiving the benefits?
That is only applicable to the adults. The child can continue to receive TANF until they are 18 years old. There could be some different situations where that may not hold true. For example, if the child starts receiving Social Security income, they would not be eligible for the TANF anymore. But that 5-year timeline applies to the adults on the case.
Next one is, what do you mean by limited resources? How is this determined? I think someone tried to answer this above in the chat, but.
So, and it might be the limited, this particular question might be connected to, like there was an earlier slide where we talked about like housing and utilities, things like that. So, you know, again, like, so self-sufficiency, we have like the 5 programs, the five flavors, right? You got refugees, you got TADBS, you got SNAP, ERDC, and TANF. Within TANF in particular, there may be, and this varies with the area too. So some areas of Oregon have different budgets for extra monies that could potentially go to help for like childcare, and when I say childcare, I mean like childcare while they're on TANF, and even housing, and it's administered differently in different parts of the state. So it's kind of, there's no clear-cut answer to it, but there are potentially some funds that could be used to help the family with barriers that they are experiencing.
And someone just dropped one in real quick here. Heather says, so back to the TANF. So a child could receive disability and the caregiving parent could receive TANF for up to 60 months without having to enter the workforce. Did I catch that correctly?
So if a child starts receiving you know, Social Security, the adult, the caretaker, could potentially continue to receive TANF up until the 60th month. Again, we would have to be, you know, having those conversations, communicating, and looking to see what the goals are and barriers, identifying those barriers, and seeing like really like what is the plan that the goal that the adult, the caretaker, would like to have, right? And we work with them. But yes, so the child would start receiving the Social Security, and then the adult would just continue to get it until the 60th month.
Great. Here's one about undocumented families. Are there any self-sufficiency benefits available for families that are undocumented?
Yeah, so I'll have to go back to kind of what I stated before. It's best if they want to see if they're eligible or not, that they apply, and we kind of go from there. It's just because everybody's situation is really different, like they need to apply, right? So I can give you an example of like, well, why can't we just say like, if they're undocumented, are they eligible for benefits or not? It just depends on the situation. I've had a case in the past where I was at a family justice center, working in a family justice center for ODHS, and we had somebody come in, and you know, they were you know, a survivor of domestic violence. They were working within their situation. They were working with law enforcement, with detectives, and they were undocumented, but they were in the process of getting a particular visa for working with law enforcement, and that, you know, later on they were able to get benefits, right? So like that's just like a really kind of like an obscure example there, but my point is that you just don't know. Every person's situation is different. We really can't compare one case with another. And so the best thing to do is to submit an application so that the eligibility worker that's trained, that has that knows policy best, that has all the support to really determine the ultimate eligibility to see if that family is eligible for benefits or not. Yeah, I just encourage everybody to apply.
Great, thank you. Here's one from a DD services worker. I have several adults on my caseload who live with their families. Their finances are completely separate from their parents, and they often receive SSI as their sole source of income. However, they report that when they're told when they apply for SNAP that they must apply as a household, including the parent's income. I'm wondering why this is, given that finances are not combined and it is essentially a roommate situation.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know about that particular situation, right? There might have been other information there. Like if they're purchasing and preparing their meals the majority of the time together, we have to kind of include them together in that benefit group, and so that in that filing group. So that also means that we would have to look at everybody's income. So if they are, you know, if the adults are, albeit they're roommates, but I don't know, they they go out and buy groceries together, or one person buys the groceries and they come home and they all prepare the food together and they all kind of have dinner, lunch, breakfast together using the same food. And it's like that the majority of the time. It could be that they have to apply together. If it's not like that, then, you know, if they're all adults over the age of 21, and they are not purchasing and preparing the food together, then, you know, it may be that we could have them determine eligibility separately. But again, like there might be other information in the situation. I would you could also ask to have the case reviewed and see if everything was if the eligibility was done correctly.
How do you ask for a case to get reviewed?
You can simply ask for like a lead worker.
Okay, great. Next one is about family coaches. How do families get in touch with their coach, and what should they do if they cannot reach them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going back to the communication piece, each family coach should have a direct phone number. And especially like right now, right when most family coaches are kind of telecommuting, they are using the work cell phone. So they do have that cell phone where the participant can contact them with. They can send them the text messages on that number. They can leave voicemails. If they have been attempting to get a hold of their family coach and they're not able to get a hold of them, it could be for different reasons, right? Like, for example, in my office right now, family coaches are doing 100% eligibility. So it's a lot more difficult for to have ongoing communication at the moment. But for whatever the reason, if the family coach isn't kind of getting back to you, you can ask to speak with the lead worker, and the lead worker will follow up. I think that's a good way to kind of check in and see if everything's okay.
Great, thank you. We have a few more minutes if anybody wants to add any questions. Otherwise, we have reached the end of the questions I collected. Feel free to chat those in there. But otherwise, Tatiana, Sachi, Raul, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. We got lots of great positive comments in the chat about how informative it was. I definitely found it very educational, and appreciate your efforts on it. Such a cool presentation. It's so simple to like just sort of, finally, I get it. Yeah, so somebody asked where the system of care slides are located. So the slides are not up yet. We're going to put that up in there. Hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have some videos posted and some slides. And that's on, you can see there's a tab on there called Navigation Resources. and that has all kinds of great stuff for each system. This is it's a list of each system. So if you go in there, you'll see self-sufficiency at the bottom because it's in alphabetical order.
Yeah. So, and thank you so much, Brian, and for Sachi and Tatiana also, and just everybody who listening to this. Thank you all so much.
All right, with that, we'll wrap it up. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.